All right, let's just get right into it. You know when you're scrolling through social media, wealth just looks, well, loud, doesn't it? It's all flashy cars, overnight crypto millionaires, and viral apps. But what if I told you that the real money, the highly reliable, incredibly predictable income, is actually moving quietly in the background? In this explainer, we're diving deep into the invisible economy. We're going to break down 12 boring, completely unglamorous businesses that are building real, quiet wealth while the rest of the world is completely distracted by the latest trend. So where is this real wealth hiding? Well, today we're going to completely rethink our assumptions. It's not like these businesses are some closely guarded secret or anything. It's just that society kind of stopped paying attention to them years ago because, quite frankly, they just aren't trendy. But their total lack of viral appeal is exactly why they thrive. They quietly generate income year after year, completely insulated from those wild hype cycles that eventually ruin flashy startups.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, urgent needs. Second, recurring red tape. Third, life transitions. And finally, we'll wrap up with the 3-step framework.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Urgent Needs, or Businesses Born from Bad Moments.
I love this quote from financial writer Morgan Housel. He says, "People are always going to have urgent problems to solve. That never changes." And he hits the nail right on the head. Technology might evolve at lightning speed, but human nature and our aging infrastructure pretty much guarantee a permanent market for emergency problem solving. Think about it. When people are facing an unignorable crisis, they aren't sitting around haggling over a price. They just need the problem fixed, right now.
So what do these crisis-driven businesses actually look like in the real world? Well, first up, we have biohazard remediation. Yep, cleaning up severe accidents. It is absolutely as intense as it sounds, which is exactly what keeps competition incredibly low. Second is septic tank service. Over in the US, a fifth of households rely on private septic tanks, and those require mandatory pumping every 3 to 5 years by law. It's a dirty job for sure, but the revenue is sparkling clean. Third is mobile tire repair for commercial fleets. When a delivery truck blows a tire, that company is bleeding money every single minute it sits there, so they will happily pay a premium for fast on-site service. And fourth, non-emergency medical transportation. As our population ages, taking patients to dialysis or chemo treatments creates this massive recurring schedule backed directly by Medicaid or private insurers.
But here's where it gets really interesting for the bottom line. Let's take that biohazard cleanup as an example. The starting payout for just a single job often sits around $1,200. Why so high? Well, because it requires specialized protective gear, specific licenses for biological wastes, and honestly, serious emotional bandwidth. But the absolute real-world secret here is that the homeowner rarely actually pays out of pocket. Homeowners insurance usually foots the bill, completely removing price as a barrier for your client.
Moving right along to Section 2, recurring red tape, which are businesses born from compliance.
These are the services legally required by governments or financial institutions. Think about things like home inspections, practically a given whenever real estate changes hands, right? Then there's land surveying, which is demanded by construction projects and property disputes. Property tax appeal consulting steps in to correct overvalued county assessments for homeowners. And commercial fire extinguisher inspection, that's mandated annually for literally every single restaurant, office, and warehouse out there. What makes this category so brilliant is that you never have to convince the client that they actually need your service. The law already did all the selling for you.
To put this into perspective, let's look at 2 totally different ways to run a business. Imagine 2 guys, Daniel and Alex. Daniel, he's out there constantly chasing one-time sales. He basically starts every single month back at zero, living with this constant anxiety about where his next paycheck is going to come from. Alex, on the other hand, focuses on those compliance businesses, like the annual fire extinguisher inspections. After a couple of years, his clients just automatically renew. Alex gets to actually enjoy financial peace of mind because his business has built-in recurrence.
Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, wait, aren't these kinds of fields incredibly hard to break into? And honestly, yes, but that is exactly the point. A high barrier to entry literally equals low competition. Take land surveying. In most states, you need a full college degree and years of supervised experience just to get licensed. But that super strict requirement is precisely what keeps uncommitted, casual competitors completely out of your market, which in turn wonderfully protects your high profit margins.
Okay, bringing us to Section 3, Life Transitions or Businesses Born from the Calendar.
So, unlike the first 2 groups, these businesses don't rely on sudden emergencies or strict government red tape. Nope. They depend purely on the natural rhythm of human life.
aging, moving, and seasonal changes. Estate sales help liquidate lifelong belongings during major emotional family transitions. Chimney sweeping and gutter maintenance, those depend on the absolute necessity of seasonal property upkeep. And mobile document shredding provides medical offices and law firms with HIPAA-compliant destruction of their old, sensitive records. You are literally getting paid to help people and corporations navigate inevitable changes while reducing their legal or physical risks.
And I gotta tell you, the sheer scale of these transitions is just staggering. Take estate sales, for instance. Did you know a professional liquidator typically takes a commission rate of 30 to 40% of the total sold? That is massive. And when you realize that we're entering this era of the greatest generational wealth transfer in history over the next decade as baby boomers downsize, the sheer volume of properties that are going to need this exact service is enormous.
But here's a really honest piece of insight from our sources. Clarity comes after you act, not before. You know how easy it is to fall into research paralysis, right? We've all been there, building endless spreadsheets, trying to find the absolute perfect, risk-free idea. But the truth is, no business looks completely safe on paper. If one of these unglamorous trades sparks your curiosity, you just need to stop analyzing and take the very first step. Go get a certification, make a phone call, just do something.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, the 3-step framework for finding your fit.
Because an idea is really only a good idea if it actually matches your specific, unique situation. So here's a highly practical 3-step matrix to filter your options. Step 1 is the recurrence filter. Are you hunting for new clients every day, or do they automatically come back? Step 2 is the real barrier to entry filter. And Step 3 is the stomach filter. Let's really break down those last two.
Let's zoom in on that second one for a second. The whole concept of a real barrier to entry is actually deeply personal. It basically means an obstacle that is super difficult for the general public, but totally manageable for you based on your specific background or skills. For example, let's look at a guy named Matthew. He spent 20 years working in property management. When he finally transitioned into becoming a certified home inspector, that steep technical learning curve that terrifies most normal people, it practically didn't exist for him because of his background. You've got to leverage what you already know to bypass the barriers that are stopping everyone else.
Then comes the hardest and maybe most important question. Do you actually have the stomach for it? This is the stomach filter. Look, some of these businesses require serious emotional bandwidth. Biohazard cleanup involves actual trauma scenes. Estate sales mean you're constantly dealing with grieving, highly stressed out families. If you don't have the emotional endurance for that specific environment, it absolutely does not matter how incredibly profitable the business looks on a spreadsheet. You simply won't last.
You know, Warren Buffett famously said, "Time is the friend of a good business and the enemy of a mediocre one." But let's build on that a little bit. Time is also the absolute best friend of the person who chooses a business they can emotionally sustain year in and year out. If you choose a trade purely for the money, but you absolutely dread the day-to-day reality of the work, time is eventually going to burn you out, for sure.
Okay, so what's the immediate action plan? First, just pick one category. Seriously, do not try to tackle all 12, it's just going to overwhelm you. Second, you got to research your specific local county laws and licenses, because trust me, they vary wildly depending on where you live. And third, and this is absolutely vital, start small with a single client. Validate the business locally before you blow your entire life savings on fancy wrap trucks or Google Ads. Just get one client, prove the model works, and then strategically reinvest your earnings. Because ultimately, the core message of this entire explainer boils down to this. You want to prioritize peace of mind over overnight riches. The real goal of these invisible businesses isn't to make you a flashy, private jet millionaire by next Tuesday. It's to build a rock-solid, incredibly dependable income floor that completely removes the fear of an unexpected financial setback. It is all about taking back control of your time and dialing down your daily anxiety.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. Based on your unique background, your own skills, and your emotional bandwidth, which invisible business are you uniquely equipped to start today? Let that sink in. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If this structured breakdown helped you see the economy just a little bit differently, please make sure to hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know which of these 12 businesses fascinated you the most. We absolutely love building future explainers directly on what you want to learn about. Until next time.